Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the messy, chaotic reality of how political change actually happens. We're going to be using a super powerful lens developed by John Kingdon, the Multiple Streams Framework, or MSF. It's basically the ultimate tool for figuring out why some issues suddenly become massive policy priorities, while others just totally fade into the background. So, think about it. How does an idea actually become a law? We all kind of want to imagine this neat, orderly assembly line, right? A problem pops up, we rationally engineer a perfect solution, and boom, a law is seamlessly passed. But let's be real. That idealized linear model, it almost never exists. In reality, policymaking is way more like a chaotic convergence of independent rivers, all flowing at their own pace, just waiting for the perfect moment to merge. Here is our roadmap for today. First, demystifying the policy process. Second, the three independent streams. Third, policy windows and coupling. Fourth, the entrepreneurial strategy. Fifth, evolutions and decision-making. And finally, future prospects of MSF. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Demystifying the policy process.
To really grasp how change happens, Kingdon built his framework on a concept from the 1970s called the garbage can model. It brilliantly treats governments not as perfect rational machines, but as organized anarchies. And these anarchies are governed by 6 highly unpredictable assumptions: ambiguity, time constraints, problematic policy preferences, unclear technology, fluid participation, meaning people are constantly moving in and out of the process, and, crucially, stream independence. That 6th assumption, stream independence, is the literal heart of the framework. It assumes we have 3 totally distinct ecosystems flowing completely independently of one another and at entirely different speeds. Problems happen regardless of available solutions. Solutions are brainstormed regardless of the current political mood. They're all just drifting, waiting for a rare chance to connect. Section 2, the 3 independent streams. Let's dive deep into exactly what is flowing inside these 3 rivers. First up is the problem stream. This stream dictates what actually grabs our super scarce attention. Things go wrong all the time, right? But they only become actionable problems requiring government action when triggered by one of 3 things: worsening statistical indicators, like a massive spike in unemployment, a sudden crisis or focusing event, like a natural disaster that dominates the news, or just absolutely terrible feedback on an existing program. Meanwhile, the policy stream is off doing its own thing. Kingdon famously called this the policy primeval soup. Imagine a giant pot where specialists, academics, and researchers are just constantly generating, debating, and recombining ideas. In this soup, solutions actually exist way before the problems do. They're essentially just wandering around looking for a problem to attach themselves to. But, not every idea actually survives the soup. These proposals have to go through a pretty rigorous softening up process. To be considered a viable alternative, a solution has to prove 3 things. It needs technical feasibility, meaning it will literally work, value acceptability within the community, and tolerable costs. If it's too expensive or too radical, it simply sinks right back to the bottom of the soup. The final river is the politics stream. Listen, you can have the most urgent problem and the most brilliant solution, but if the political climate is hostile, your proposal is going absolutely nowhere. This stream is driven by the national mood, the campaigns of pressure groups, and, most powerfully, administrative or legislative turnover. A new election can literally dictate whether the doors of power are locked shut or thrown wide open. Section 3, policy windows and coupling. So if these streams are entirely independent and obey their own rules, how do they ever actually meet? The climax of this whole framework is the policy window. This is a super rare, fleeting, perfect storm where all 3 streams align at the exact same time. It's literally like a combination lock clicking into place. A problem is recognized, a viable solution is ready, and the political climate is welcoming. But these windows shut fast, so action has to be taken immediately to couple or merge the streams together. Now, these windows usually take one of 2 forms. Consequential windows are driven by the problem stream. Think of a sudden disaster that demands an immediate prepackaged solution to restore order. Doctrinal windows, on the other hand, are driven by the politics stream. That's when a newly elected government comes into power with a pre-planned ideological agenda, actively hunting for problems they can solve with their favored policies. Section 4, the entrepreneurial strategy. Here is a crucial reality check. An open window on its own guarantees absolutely nothing. Enter the real hero of our story, the policy entrepreneur. This isn't a formal job title. It could be an activist, an academic, or a politician. They are incredibly persistent people who invest their own time, money, and reputation to push a policy forward. Their entire strategy is spotting that open window the second it appears, skillfully coupling the problems and solutions together, and ruthlessly pushing past resistance using manipulation and agenda control before that window slams shut. They're the catalyst that makes the lock finally open. Section 5, Evolutions and Decision-Making. Once an issue actually makes it onto the governmental agenda, what happens to the idea itself? Well, the evolution of these ideas is rarely a one-size-fits-all thing. It's often highly incremental. If a policy community is really tight-knit and integrated, they usually produce slow, gradualist extensions to existing rules. But if a community is looser and highly competitive, that environment can actually spark rapid, massive, quantum leaps in completely new ideas. Ultimately, getting an issue onto the agenda is just half the battle. Actually translating that agenda into law requires what scholars call political entrepreneurs inside the government. The MSF decision-making hypothesis states that adoption is way more likely if a policy is championed by the ruling party, is backed by unshakable political support, and is framed as clearly solving a broad public interest problem. Section 6, Future Prospects of MSF. Even though Kingdon laid this out in the 90s, it is far from a historical artifact. Researchers today are aggressively pushing the MSF framework forward. They're refining exactly how that coupling mechanic works, applying the theory to global and even non-democratic systems, and using hard quantitative data to map out the entire decision-making cycle. Understanding this framework gives us a totally new, incredibly powerful lens for viewing political change. It's not a rational assembly line. It is the opportunistic art of navigating independent rivers of problems, policies, and politics. So, with these streams constantly flowing around us every single day in the real world, what policy window will you be watching for next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.